This is Real Estate Talk Boston. Today we're going to talk Allston and Brighton, and joining me right now is PT Vineburgh from Charlesgate Realty. PT, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Fellow hockey guy, we got to put the hockey talk aside for a second, but definitely enjoyed that. You guys do a lot of business over in that area, and we're similar ages.
Yep.
Through college and 20s and 30s, AllstonBrighton was known as a renter's market, where a lot of the colleges and post-college people went to rent.
Yes.
The face of that market is changing right now.
It is, and it's kind of ironic for me on a personal level, given that my career kind of started in college as a rental agent, and then opened up Charlesgate about 15 years ago and went more into this sales end of the market, and what we're doing now predominantly in AllstonBrighton is a lot of this new development marketing, and the sea change out there over the past 24 months has been dramatic in that new construction condominium market didn't even exist out there. And now, not only does it exist, it's extremely competitive and it's growing quite rapidly with the amount of projects in the pipeline. And I think it was really just a matter of time for AllstonBrighton to kind of reach the level it's at now, and hopefully we'll continue to traject upwards from a quality of life standpoint, and obviously just from a desirability standpoint on the development end of things as well.
I mean, just simply from the location, right? I mean, it's a great location.
It is. It
was due to happen at some point.
It had to, right? I mean, it's kind of the law of proximity. I mean, you're close to the city, you're close to the Pike, you're close to Route 9, you're close to all the amenities that you get in Chestnut Hill. If you commute, out west to, the TJXs of the world and things like that. I mean, it's a very convenient location, and I do think that there will always be an element of a large element of rental property out there, and particularly the college-centric stuff, with BU and BC kind of, flanking either end of AllstonBrighton, however you want to look at it. But that being said, you're clearly now seeing a high level of interest for people that are, more professional and families to move to that location.
Sure. Going back to, let's say, late 90s, early 2000s, where it was Beacon Hill, Back Bay, right? And then it pushed out to Southie, and Southie's gone out of control now.
Yes.
Price point-wise, it's crazy, but it's tough to get into Southie as a first-time home buyer, just with what values have done there. What are you looking at as you get into that AllstonBrighton market? I mean, is it more palatable for that first-time home buyer?
I mean, I think it can be. I do think that's with the caveat that new development product is just inherently more expensive, right? Sure. Just the cost of construction, the cost of land, and so the new construction prices are really, high. I mean, who would have thought that, we have certain buildings that we're doing in Brighton where we have things under agreement over $1,000 a square foot. And they aggregating around, $925 at one project, $800 at another, $850 at another. So that's all per square foot. And that, those are big numbers. Now, the flip side of that is you look at the Fenway, with $1,500 a foot, new construction, gutted brownstones in Back Bay and Beacon Hill are $2,000 a foot. So relatively speaking, it is still affordable. I do think there's a little market segment that's relatively untapped in AllstonBrighton specifically, and as well as Somerville and even Southie and Charlestown to a lesser extent, of just, forget the 25 to 100 unit new ground up construction buildings, but like a fully gutted, renovated brownstone, triple decker. There's still a nice delta between what that stuff sells for per foot versus these newer buildings.
Sure.
So, you could get into a gorgeous, fully renovated, brand new condo in a triple decker for $500-600 a square foot, in the same area where just down the street, if you're in a 40-unit building that's got some amenities and some brand identity, that's $900 to $1,000 a foot. So that's a big swing there. So.
And it's interesting how the tables have turned. Going back to South Boston, a lot of that growth was through the triple deckers, right? Being converted to condos. Yep. It's cool to see on the other side of the city, a lot of it is building with amenities that are being offered that traditionally weren't offered in the Boston area.
Yeah, I mean, so the first new construction condo project in AllstonBrighton since 2008 was the Lancaster building, which we sold out in 2015. And so that was really hard to kind of even come up with the program and the comparative sales analysis for it, because the last new building out there on the condo site was literally 8 years earlier. So we were somewhat kind of throwing darts like, okay, where do we price this? And the market will always speak, and things rose. And then since that sort of set the bar, and then there was a bunch of immediate resales because of the increase in value, and then 180 Telford came in, and now you kind of have a market that's set. And so then we have the 2 that we're doing right now, and we've got a bunch more in our pipeline where, this new construction market in Allston-Brighton is hovering around, 800 to 950 a square foot. And, those are big numbers for that location.
But a lot of those places are eliminating outside costs for the buyer, right? I'm guessing a lot of them might have gyms and concierge services.
Yes, right. Yes, and that's a great point. I mean, you have a little bit of an amenity war across the board going on in these new developments, but specifically as it pertains to the competitive landscape in Allston-Brighton, we are advising all the developers and the projects that we're working on that they need to think like that and really trying to beef up the amenities, whether it's kind of your standard baseline of a gym, a residential lounge, some kind of common outdoor space, ideally with grills or fire pits. But I mean, we have guys that are doing pools on the roof, private kind of roof deck, roof cabana type situations.
Sounds pretty cool to me.
Great, especially this time of year. It sounds awesome. So, you've got dog washes, you've got rowing rooms, you've got a lot of different amenities that you're seeing people bring into the fold to try to, again, give themselves a competitive advantage. And it makes for better buildings for people. I think it's, exciting as a buyer to know that these type of opportunities are out there that weren't, a few years ago.
It came up in a conversation earlier this week in regards to appetite. You think Boston's could be overbuilt, or is the buyer?
I mean, I think there has to be a tipping point on some level at some point. Now, I think it's more on price than it is on absorption. I just think that you just start hitting certain, what they kind of refer to as chunk prices in specific locations, you run into issues. So people always focus on price per square foot, but the absolute dollar or chunk price, I think you need to be very cognizant of is if you're developing in, these more what people perceive as emerging markets, because there's only so many $1 million buyers in Allston-Brighton, right? So we just literally, it was a resale at that building I referenced from 2 years ago. That was the first $1 million condo sale to ever close in the 02135 zip code. And that was only 30 days ago, 60 days ago, whatever it was. So that being said, you can't design a building that has 20 units that are 1,500 square feet and are $1.2 million. Like, that's not going to sell. So you have to be really kind of cognizant of what product you bring to the market. And I think that will certainly dictate the appetite that you're referencing. I do think overall we're just in such a supply constrained market and have been for years, in that, we estimate 5, maybe 600 home ownership units in Brighton, but that's over like a 4 or 5 year period while for those to get delivered.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, that's not a huge amount of supply, right? And that's literally and that's the second most developing market in Boston. If you go to like the BPDA website and you look at the graph of number of approved units per neighborhood, you've got the Seaport way out here, you've got Allston-Brighton kind of right here, and then everyone else is backtracking more towards you get to Back Bay and you almost have none. Right, just because of the historical and architectural constraints there, where you can't really bring anything to market. So if that's your second most, rapidly growing neighborhood in the city, and there's only plus or minus 100 to 150 units per year that need to be absorbed, not a huge, not going to move the needle really. Yeah. So.
Great information. Thank you for stopping by, PT.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me. Thanks again. It's fun.
If you're looking to move into the Allston-Brighton area and looking to check out new developments, you want to connect with PT and his team directly, go to charlesgaterealty.com. Remember, we have more market updates and tips just like this one right here on boston.com.